Good afternoon, everyone. You're all very welcome, and thank you so much for taking the time out of your workday to come to our masterclass today on workplace culture and attitudes towards neurodiversity. You might have been at our previous masterclasses, or this could be the first one you are attending. Either way, you're very welcome. This is our third masterclass in a series that we have been delivering over the last few months, and that we will continue to be delivering over the coming months as part of our partnership with Irish Jobs. At the launch event of our partnership at the beginning of April, we revealed our collaborative report, Autism in the Workplace, that evidenced that almost 4 in 5 autistic people face barriers to employment in Ireland. While it's currently estimated that 1 in 65 people in Ireland are autistic, we are still seeing that around 85% of autistic people are still unemployed or underemployed. Irish Jobs and AsIAm came together to champion autistic talent in the workplace in an effort to address these barriers in practical, strategic ways so that employers can gain the knowledge needed to support autistic and neurodiverse employees. We have some amazing speakers lined up for you today to share their experience and their expertise, and we're very grateful for their participation. Those speakers are Emily Banks, Rob McLean, Jenny Kane-Mason, and Zoe Cannan. We will also have time at the end for questions and answers after hearing from all of our speakers. So if you do have any questions throughout the session, please type them into the Q&A box and we'll answer those at the end. So our first speaker today is Emily Banks. Emily is the founder and CEO of Enna, a recruitment agency based in London, which specialises in recruiting autistic talent. Founded in 2018 as Stack Recruitment, inspired by her experience growing up in a family with an autistic father and an autistic brother, and noticing the barriers her father and brother experienced on a day-to-day basis. Enna works to connect talented autistic candidates with inclusive employers, supporting autistic candidates to build fulfilling careers in their ideal job and helping employers to make their workforce more diverse and inclusive. Stack Recruitment Enna does this through providing tailored support and mentoring from specialist job coaches, working with employers to make the recruitment process and their workplace culture more accessible and inclusive to neurodivergent workers, and job matching on a personal basis for the individual job seeker. So we're now delighted to hear from Emily. We'll be listening to Emily speak for the next 20 minutes or so. And if you've any questions for her, as I said, please put them into the Q&A box and we'll get to those at the end. So over to you now, Emily. Thank you so much.
Brilliant, what a great introduction. Thank you so much for having me. I'm just going to share my screen now and just get the PowerPoint up that I've obviously made before, and then we can just go through that. 1 second. Where are we? Let's go back on this. Go back to the start. Oh, sorry for the delay. Bro, hopefully we can all see that.
Yeah, we can.
Cool, fabulous. Yeah, so thanks once again for having me. It's great to be here and obviously share my experiences and a bit about what we do with everyone on this call and hopefully beyond, and hopefully we can all learn something and take something away from today. Cool, so as Fiona said, we're now called Enna, so we've been going through a slight sort of rebrand over the past, I guess 2 to 4 weeks now. Previously we were called Stack Recruitment, which we focus more on sort of the recruitment side, but now we are sort of starting this employers network, which really connects sort of like-minded employers that want to focus on neurodiversity to really sort of create a group of employers that can really champion neurodiversity and create lots and lots of more job opportunities in the UK and sort of beyond for fantastic neurodiverse talent that's out there. Cool, so I know this looks like a really hectic slide, but just to go over sort of the plan for the sort of 20 minutes that I'm going to be presenting and some of the main sort of points I'm going to be covering so you can get an idea about what's coming up and hopefully just think of some questions that we can ask during this sort of Q&A period. And if you obviously have any questions for me personally, you can obviously welcome to have my email address at the end or anything like that. So just going to be talking briefly about who are we. So I know Fiona did a great job of introducing me just then, but just expanding on a bit more about where this business came from and what we actually do, and a bit about sort of my personal reasons for starting this. Secondly, so how we actually support autistic candidates and sort of in the recruitment process and beyond. Thirdly, the barriers autistic people may face, both sort of in recruitment and the workplace. Fourthly, how the workplace culture may actually exclude autistic people. So how we're sort of creating a workplace that doesn't really favour the autistic way of thinking and doing. The fifth point would be actually the benefits neurodiversity brings. So more the sort of employer's perspective about how it is obviously such a fantastic thing to do and what the value autistic people can actually bring to the workplace. The sixth point is what employers can actually do to promote this. The seventh one is obviously what does an inclusive culture look like. Finally, sort of looking at how you can actually integrate autistic people into the workplace culture and how can neurodiversity actually become the norm. So how can we go from actually saying that we've got these sort of programs specifically for autistic people to actually integrating them into the sort of the mainstream culture and the workplace as well. Cool. So just a bit following on about Fiona, what Fiona said earlier. So now we are actually a specialist membership organisation. So we actually have employers as members and we help them to sort of attract, recruit and integrate neurodivergent talent within their workforce. So we do this through things like our jobs board, training services, consultancy and coaching. So actually just helping people, autistic people specifically with their CVs and helping them actually apply for jobs in the interview process through things such as like mock interviews and other things like that. Yeah, and I guess you're wondering what the random picture on the right. So this is me actually a few years back and my two brothers. So they're actually my inspiration for starting what was Stack Recruitment, now Enna. In the middle, we've got my brother Phil, so he's dyslexic. And on the right, we've got my brother Matt, who has Asperger's. And my dad didn't actually make the cut, but he's also autistic. So I've grown up in a family that is sort of heavily neurodiverse. And I guess I've learned and understood their challenges over the years for why they can't get a job, or they may struggle to do things that I think neurotypical people may take for granted, like phone calls or meeting new people or whatever that may be. So I guess they're my actually passion for starting the business. Cool. So how do we actually support autistic job seekers? So what do we actually do and how can we support you in both the recruitment and the workplace? So we do have an accessible jobs board. So this is actually on our website, but our website's currently being changed over and sort of transitioned in terms of the branding and stuff at the moment. So I'm really sorry you can't access that. But it's an accessible jobs board. So what happens is employers can come to us if they say they want to hire more neurodiverse people. And we'd actually post it on there, would make the job descriptions more accessible. So actually making sure that you can fully sort of process and understand them, including basic things such as obviously the location, the postcode, whether they're full-time, and what sort of the benefits are of each company, just so it provides a real sort of clear cut to connect sort of autistic people to jobs with inclusive employers. So we really want to connect you with them employers that actually really do understand autism and really can sort of support you in the workplace and make you feel sort of happy, welcomed and supported at the end of the day. So that will be going back up in about a week's time. So once we've just figured out some of the basic sort of techie things with the website, but obviously this is hopefully going to be a really useful resource going forward, and we're going to have much more employers on there as well. Just other bits and bobs we do. So this is obviously a huge list of the sort of training we can do for employers. So if you're actually employed right now and you've got a really fantastic manager, they think they may or could do with some extra support in terms of the training. These are sort of the main sort of things we do. So the Neurodiversity 101, actually helping you understand autism, and actually support autistic people in the workplace, and just basic things like that. And we also do consultancy where we sort of advise employers, and as well as coaching within the workplace as well. Brilliant. So just going over quickly some of the barriers that autistic people may face in the workplace. So if you're autistic yourself, I'm sure you can understand most of these. Yeah, so just basic things like sort of understanding the unwritten rules of the workplace. So a lot of employees may have their own sort of way of doing things and looking at things. So when employees can actually go for their lunch breaks, or who they're meant to sort of respond to or communicate with, basic things like a hierarchy and things like that. These things can obviously be quite complicated and a lot of quite confusing at times as well. So who you actually talk to, how you're meant to do things, can present sort of real barrier in the workplace, and sort of how you actually follow these. So secondly, so busy commutes. I know from sort of big cities like London, Dublin and Belfast in the sort of Irish sense, that this can be very overwhelming for someone with autism. So actually just getting on tubes or buses at that particular rush hour at the start and the end of the day can be really overwhelming and often create a lot of anxiety for quite a lot of people as well. Thankfully, well, not thankfully, we've gone through the global pandemic, which means that obviously now a lot of us are working from home, which is obviously great. So I guess it doesn't present as much challenges at the moment, but going forward, this can be really overwhelming and quite stressful as well. Secondly, so I know especially in big cities, there are quite a lot of sort of social events after work. So a lot of people go for drinks or networking events or whatever that may be, which after work, a lot of neurodivergent people can often feel quite obviously drained and a bit tired, and just not really want to go to these. And I think that can create quite a big barrier, as I think a lot of people are almost expected to go to them, or you're expected as a team to go out for food or drinks, whatever that may be. Thirdly, so just small talk with colleagues. This may not obviously come natural to quite a lot of autistic people, but in the morning it may be sort of what the weather's like, or how your weekend's been, or how your family are, or friends, or what we've been up to. And a lot of autistic people obviously do like just get on with work and focus on certain things and sort of avoid this small talk and creating this conversation as much as possible. So obviously the environmental side as well. So obviously the noisy, bright office environment. So people sort of hustling and bustling down a central corridor, or coffee breaks, or whatever this may be, can obviously present quite a lot of challenges. So if the bright office lights or the air conditioning can be quite overwhelming as well. Yeah, and again, that sort of ad hoc tasks and the lack of routine. So especially if you're in a more sort of client or customer service based role, you may have sort of things coming at you from all sort of areas. You may be asked to do certain things that are not necessarily in your sort of day-to-day routine and sort of your tasks, which can often throw people off and make people feel quite overwhelmed as well. This is the big one we also get quite a lot. So actually colleagues' lack of understanding about autism and actually how to support and sort of, I guess, liaise and sort of build rapport with an autistic colleague. We get obviously a lot of requests for training, and this can obviously be quite difficult, and a lot of people end up actually leaving their jobs due to the colleagues not actually understanding how they work as well. Disclosure, so we get asked this probably 5 or 6 times a week. So actually, when do you disclose? How do you do it? This can be obviously really, really difficult for a lot of people. And then finally, just communication. So actually, sort of, I guess it brings back to this sort of small talk element. So actually, how do you communicate? What are the best ways to communicate with autistic people? And how do you communicate with neurotypical people? It can often create quite a divide in the middle as well. Real. So the next part we're going to be looking at is just how the workplace culture may actually exclude autistic individuals, and I guess how we've created this culture where we don't really favour the autistic way of thinking and doing as well. So I've created this somewhat complicated but hopefully useful sort of workplace culture building. So sort of what is the normal culture for most corporates and within most employers, and then what is classed as different. So what actually autistic people may bring that is a bit different in the workplace. So in the middle, I've sort of created this building, which is, it's quite secure, it's what we look for, it's what we do, and it's a lot what people are used to as well. So obviously employees being confident, creating small talk, attending work socials, being naturally sort of chatty and confident, having those sort of sociable lunch breaks where we're expected to sort of eat and drink or whatever and socialise during our lunch break. Productiveness, so it's a consistent sort of idea that we have to be busy and consistently productive. And then being a people person as well, so being able to just speak to whoever and meet whoever without sort of much fear about what's going on or anything like that. So the ones I put on the outside are ones that we don't commonly we don't commonly sort of associate with workplace cultures. So obviously autistic people bring quite a lot of a lack of eye contact, or wanting to spend your break alone, avoiding that small talk in the morning about the weather that I said previously, not wanting to socialise after work, maybe needing more regular breaks, being seen as direct or quite black and white, and then having good or bad days. So I think that employers tend to look for this culture and this persona that we often, I guess, assimilate with actually employers and actually the workplace culture. And actually autistic people may bring quite a lot of different stuff, which may be quite shocking to quite a lot of managers as well. So I'm not saying that this is the things that autistic people bring are wrong in any way. It's just quite different to what we perceive as a common sort of corporate and workplace culture more so. So what are actually the benefits that neurodiversity can bring? So I've just wrote quite a lot of the stats that I found quite interesting over the time when I've sort of been running this business, about how autistic people especially can benefit employers as well. Cool. So the first one is just about absences. So neurodivergent employees had no absences compared to the 4 days taken by their neurotypical counterparts. and we're only late 3 times compared to 20 times from a neurotypical employee. So neurodivergent and autistic people especially tend to be very punctual, very much on time, compared to neurotypical people who may have much more time off for sickness or things like that, and much more like come into the office later as well. Secondly, so neurodivergent employees typically stay in their jobs 3.5 times longer than their neurotypical counterparts. So I think a lot of times I've seen where neurodiverse people can actually go into an office and they remain very loyal to an employer. So once they're comfortable, once they feel like they're supported, and once they know sort of what they're doing and who they work with, they actually stay in their jobs a lot longer than actually neurotypical people. And thirdly, just from a consumer perspective, so 87% of all consumers said they would actually prefer to buy from a business who employ disabled people. So I guess it's this sort of CSR angle, so your corporate social responsibility. Consumers would also really prefer to spend their money with someone that is doing good for both people, the planet, and the environment. And then finally, so one I mentioned quickly previously, so sickness rates were significantly lower. So they're 8.3 days for disabled people in the year compared to 9.7 days for non-disabled employees. So I think the general gist is that neurodivergent people take much less absence, much less days off than your neurotypical people, which obviously create a lot of business benefits for employers as well. Cool, and just looking at the sort of skill sets and the talents that neurodivergent people can bring in the workplace. So statistics actually say that neurodivergent employees are 130% more productive than your neurotypical people. So they can be a lot more focused, a lot more sort of precise in things they do. And this thing about intense focus, so you can actually do jobs and they're doing for a lot longer as well. They're much more reliable. So obviously in terms of the thing that we mentioned earlier, so the lateness and the absences and things like that, they often have an excellent memory. They're very analytical and methodical and things like that. So generally, they're just, obviously autistic people are just generally very good workers in terms of these skill sets and talents that they can bring as well. So what can actually employers do to promote neurodiversity in their workplace? So I've sort of looked at this in terms of just like a 3-tier type thing. If you do have any questions about this in the Q&A, feel free to obviously bring this up. But the main sort of thing is ensuring that neurodiverse people are actually part of their wider talent management strategy. So this means that employers are just actively recruiting and actually just going out of the way to sort of attract and recruit more neurodivergent talent within their workplace. So the first tier we're going to sort of look at quickly is the whole organisation. So how can the whole organisation actually come behind and actually promote neurodiversity? So the way to do this is actually create recruitment strategy objectives. So this is obviously saying that we want to actually recruit 2% of the workforce to be neurodiverse by 2025, for example. And this can actually help you sort of start a company-wide neurodiversity initiative. The second tier is departmental. So whether that is the finance department or the marketing department, whatever that may be within an employer's organisation, you can actually create more recruitment objectives that are a bit more specific to the actual department. And a way to actually measure this would be through equal opportunities forms. So I'm not sure if people are having to sort of fill in these beforehand, but it's basically where you actually disclose if you are autistic or you need some adjustments in the workplace. And you may do that at the very start of recruitment as well. It just helps employers sort of track who they've got, I guess, coming through their doors and who they're recruiting and things like that. And then what you can actually do with this is actually just help and promote your exit vacancies with different organisations. So if this is through ourselves, for our jobs board, for example, or Indeed or Reed, it just helps that you're attracting quite a myriad of diverse talent and from all different areas. Cool. So actually employee-wide, to actually focusing on individuals as themselves. So one fantastic way to actually do this is create neurodiversity awareness. So you may have seen many employers actually doing sort of neurodiversity based training or webinars, or actually taking part in sort of Autism Week or Neurodiversity Celebration Week or whatever that may be. So you can actually sort of start these campaigns and get people sort of thinking and doing and asking questions about neurodiversity as well. And a way you'd actually measure this is actually just surveying staff about their attitudes. So whether that's a simple sort of questionnaire or whatever that may be, it can help you sort of think more about neurodiversity and how they think about it. So a way to actually deliver is just delivering training to actually make staff aware about neurodiversity and how they can work effectively more with their neurodivergent colleagues. Cool, and actually just a way to actually develop this. So these 4 things are really sort of pivotal. So actually having your leadership, whether that's your boss or your CEO or the management or whatever that may be, just really honing in on neurodiversity and the value it can bring. Actually changing your recruitment methods a little bit. So implementing some reasonable adjustments and things like that. Getting some external partnerships, so getting some jobs board that maybe specialise like ourselves that can actually promote neurodiversity, and then just doing some workplace training, so getting people thinking and learning about neurodiversity. So these 4 things, if you're autistic and obviously in a job at the moment, you can obviously approach your employer and ask them what they're doing about it, whether people are getting training or there's some more external sort of statistics or whatever that may be as well. Cool. What does actually an inclusive culture look like? So what does it actually look like to be fully inclusive within your culture? So firstly, just having access to resources. So giving employees this actually support they need to actually thrive in the workplace, whether this is like a Grammarly subscription or assistive technology or an app, whatever that may be, to really help them thrive and really help them do a really great job in their work. Giving employees a voice. So I think this is super, super important. Just giving employees a say in decisions, and it's actually find ways to actually give employees a chance to be heard as well. Ensuring everyone's accepted and valued for who they are. So making sure that your employer really values your unique contribution of who you are as a person. Creating a sense of belonging. So make inclusion real and not just a thing that we often talk about or write down or whatever that may be. Creating a collaborative environment so teams and individuals can connect with each other. So making sure that you can actually talk about the benefits neurodiversity can bring and have a sort of honest conversation about neurodiversity as well. And then focusing on inclusive practices. So promoting these sort of diverse perspectives and actually taking action. So just, I guess, more talking about what neurodiversity can bring and what your unique contribution is, and making yourself heard as well within the workplace. So just some basic stats. So I know we're really running out of time, but employees who feel included are 28% more engaged, have 19% greater wellbeing in their lives, are 43% more committed to their company, and are 51% more likely to recommend their company as a great place to work. And typically, as we said previously, will stay 3 times longer as well. So how do you actually integrate autistic people into a workplace culture? So the key sort of points from this is actually offering them a range of jobs and not just in tech. So I think a lot of the time employees have this sort of preconceived stereotype that all autistic people are interested in sort of coding, technology, whatever that may be, and they're often young and sort of coders and gamers, whatever that may be. But the reality is, obviously, this is not the case. Autistic people are obviously interested in a lot of different range of jobs and are interested in a lot of different range of things. Sorry. Ensuring just buy-in at all levels. So if sort of your boss or your CEO is really interested in neurodiversity, ensuring everyone sort of understands why you're doing it and everyone's sort of behind the neurodiversity sort of initiatives and things like that. Thirdly, just getting that training for your managers and supervisors. So moving away from those stereotypes that we mentioned previously, and actually making sure that people do understand how they can support autistic people in the workplace and what it is and what this means for maybe the culture as well. So fourthly, so having job coaching and retention. So just making sure that autistic people may have some sort of external job coaching support and someone they can talk to actually help them stay in the job as well. The fifth point is sort of making sure you've got a lot of patience and flexibility. So if you can, obviously that is absolutely great that you can be a bit more flexible and give them maybe different start times or whatever that may be, just to help a little bit more. And then finally, just don't focus on the negative. So I think a lot of people often perceive autism as this really like sort of time consuming or hard or costly thing to actually put in place. But in reality, obviously, it's a lot different as well. Cool. So really finally, I'll literally skip over this really quickly, but how can actually neurodiversity become the norm? So just firstly, neurodiversity isn't something nice to do, and it should be a part of a company's wider mission. So it isn't just like a CSR tick box exercise. It should really be incorporated into everything a company does. Measures that are good for autistic people are often really good for everyone. So it's not just a thing that just benefit autistic people. A lot of things, obviously, like flexible working can obviously benefit a lot of different staff members as well. And thirdly, just educating staff really is essential to sort of push that forward and create understanding in the workplace as well. Cool. Sorry, I'm glad I've gone through that so quickly. But thank you so much, and I'll pass it over to Fiona again.
Thank you so much, Emily. No, you covered a huge amount there, so and exactly to the minute, 25 past 12. So well done. That was fantastic. Some really good things covered there. I loved some of the statistics and things that you coded as well. So I'll definitely be following up with you just to learn a little bit more about, I suppose, research that's been done in that area where you're based. But I thought that was fascinating. So thank you so much. I'm sure many people who are here today at the masterclass as well took something away from that. And of course, if anybody has any questions for Emily, please put them into the Q&A box and we can come to those then at the end. So next we have Rob McLean from Northern Trust. So Rob is a Senior Vice President and Head of Ireland Fund Accounting and Middle Office Services for Northern Trust, a leading provider of wealth management, asset servicing and banking to corporations, institutions and individuals since 1889. Rob McLean joined Northern Trust in May 2011 as part of the Bank of Ireland Securities Services acquisition, and he previously served as Head of Fund Accounting in Ireland. He has also headed up the Bank of Ireland Securities Services Fund Accounting Department for over 4 years prior to his department being taken over by Northern Trust. Rob has worked in the funds industry since 1997 and has also worked with GAM and Citi prior to joining Bank of Ireland and Northern Trust, holding managerial positions within each. As part of his role within Northern Trust and as a father to a disabled child, Rob is spearheading the organisation's initiative to become disability confident as part of its objective to become diverse and inclusive as a workforce. This includes promoting disability champions within the organisation, making their HR and recruitment processes more inclusive, undertaking awareness campaigns and offering job shadowing opportunities to disabled candidates, among many other initiatives. So I'm sure you can all agree that there's a lot of different hats that Rob is wearing, and we're really excited to have you here today. And I'm sure you'll be able to give us some really positive insights to the work you do and perhaps some things that we can take away with us today. So thank you so much, Rob. I'll hand over to you now.
Thanks, Fiona. And I'd say obviously thanks, I suppose for the update earlier on there from I think really interesting, and a lot of the points raised there I'd probably be reinforcing a little bit from a practical perspective in terms of what we've done in Northern Trust. So just a little bit about Northern Trust, just briefly, is Northern Trust is an asset servicing company, financial services. It's been in Ireland, over 30 years. It's about 22,000 staff globally, and it's very much focused, as a lot of companies are, on D&I and making sure we're getting that right. I think within Ireland, we have a huge presence in Limerick. We're probably the second largest employer in Limerick at the moment, private employer, and in Dublin we've got 500 people to 1,200 in Limerick. So we're growing the whole time, and we've a quite diverse workforce. And like all companies, we have been focused a lot on the kind of broader diversity topics, the generic diversity topics that every company is trying to strive for. Obviously, gender and race are top for a list. But my own view on this, and as Fiona said as well, I guess I have a little bit of perspective on this from having a child myself on the spectrum and seeing things quite differently, which I probably wouldn't have seen the same light if I didn't have a child, with special needs. And I think that's helped me give a little bit of kind of context in work, and certainly helped get people on board to a different way of thinking. Because for me, to have a truly diverse workforce, you've got to have a good reflection of society, not just the things which are very topical, and rightfully so at the moment in terms of gender and race. They are topical and they're very important. But for me, to have a completely wholesome workforce, you've got to have a complete reflection of society where possible as well. So what we've embarked on over the last while, we've loads of different councils and different resources internally. Fiona's touching a couple there in terms of the ones that we've stood up ourselves, different initiatives to help, job shadowing and help get engagement. And it's all very good. But really, my honest view is that companies need to do more in this space. We're not doing enough in this space. There is, I wouldn't say there's a reluctance, I'd say there's a lack of education, and I'd say there's a lack of awareness around the benefits of having a completely diverse workforce, and in doing that, making sure that all your staff are educated. I use a very simple analogy that when I go for a walk with my daughter, you get kind of two reactions still, and it's a little bit Irish. Like, you get the reaction of shock and look and staring and what's going on there, and you can just see it's pure lack of education. And then you get the other look, which is someone who's been educated, may have some of their own context and perspective, and it's a completely normal reaction. And really what I'm trying to foster in NT is that normalization of anybody with any kind of ability or disability, and just emerging it into the workforce and making it organic, making it just normal, and kind of getting on with it a little bit as well, about, without making a big deal about it and without making it such, a big topic. It should be just part of our day to day. And the more we do of it, the more we become normalized. So what we've done over the last couple of years is we worked with a very good company in Ireland called Special Attorney. I think Terry Gleason is actually on the line here as well. And it's another company which works with candidates, identifies candidates, and works with companies such as yourselves to say, are these candidates potentially the right fit for you guys? And then we will work with them to do some interviews, all that kind of heavy lifting, if you want to call it that. It's not even that much heavy lifting in terms of interview prep, CV consolidation, all that kind of stuff, which we've discussed already. That's all kind of done in advance. But from our part, it's really making sure then we kind of work with Special Terrain or any other company who's in this space to see what's the right candidates. No different, by the way, to working with any other recruiter, by the way. So you have lots of different challenges with any, if you like, staff member who doesn't have autism today, and you put lots of structure mechanisms around them, be it at the recruitment stage or be it when they're in situ. And it's no different really from our perspective. I think the couple of things we've learned by doing this over the last couple of years is communication. And I can't say that enough, because this is a problem, I suppose, in any workforce communication, having clear, concise, regular communication. And it's so important in the autistic space. It really is. I mean, having that there makes such a difference. And it does actually drive a bit of discipline in organizations as well, because people can be lazy around communication. They can give communication in the manner that suits them as opposed to how it's going to be received. And I think for us, it's actually brought a bit of discipline around communication in my teams. So my teams in Ireland, I'm responsible for just over 400 people. We've worked very hard over the last couple of years to get the diversity right in terms of gender and race, and we're almost there on that piece. But really, the focus has shifted over the last couple of years to make sure we're really reflecting, as I said earlier on, society a lot more. So, what we've done in terms of taking in a candidate, and more candidates which we'd like to take in throughout this year into next year, and keep building on this and try to hit some targets. But again, not just for corporate social responsibility objectives, really, as I said, just to make it more organic, to normalize this in the workplace. And that's really our objective. It's not to hit a target. It's not to put a nice post up on LinkedIn saying, here, we've done this, we've done that. It's not about that. It's actually just to make this a normal feature of any day-to-day work, or any environment or any job that's out there. So for us, the lessons for us, we've hired a candidate, and we've touched on some of the skills there. I think all the stuff that we've touched on at the start is, I absolutely echo it, incredibly analytical. Productivity higher than the normal staff member. Discipline is incredible to watch as well. I mean, very structured, very disciplined. Sick leave and stuff like that is a rarity, and not doing things on time and right is a rarity. Once that communication is in place to begin with, there's realistic targets, like you'd have for any staff member, by the way, and there is support where it's needed. That's really is the magic simple formula. It's not as complicated or as onerous as probably people perceive it is. From our perspective, having a good manager in place, so like anything, if you have an introvert manager there, someone who's not really into the people management side, gravitates more to the technical stuff, well, that's not the person to manage someone with autism. It's someone who is shows the empathy, shows that bit of patience, and is really active with their staff, engaging, good communicator with their staff. They're the ones who will work well with an autistic person, as they will with anybody else on their team. Typically, those type of managers, the rest of their team are performing well anyway. So it's just making sure you have the right buddy, if you like, or right manager in an organization to help that, along with the external support as well, which is key. A couple of anomalies and a couple of obstacles come up like anything, like you would with anything, but they're pretty quickly overcome, particularly the external support as well, and a bit of kind of common sense approach around these things too. So from our perspective, we are getting an awful lot out of candidates we have. We touched on, yes, there is a perception that they're all kind of focused on technology. And look, some of that is true. I mean, our experience has been definitely the data analytics side, mathematical side, they are excellent. I mean, some of the stuff they've built for us over the last couple of years is best in class. It's much better than their counterparts. And, it's something that as well they're pretty proud about. So for example, MIS reporting within my teams, a lot of MIS reporting in their companies, which ultimately go up to regulators, etc. Very important stuff, has to be right. I actually trust these guys to do a better job on it and a more comprehensive, disciplined job on it at times than probably some of the ordinary staff members, that wouldn't be as focused and as routine and regimented around it. So that's been a massive benefit from our perspective. I think then amalgamating some of the softer stuff, so not just pigeonholing them into, right, they're very good in data analytics, very good in technology, what else can they bring? So, it's one of the members that works with us at the moment, they built an onboarding tool. During the pandemic, obviously we continue to recruit staff. That hasn't slowed down, that hasn't changed. But it's obviously a huge challenge to try to recruit someone remotely now and make sure that everything is being all the processes, all the TLC parts of onboarding someone, as well as the actual mechanics and the practicalities, are all being done in sequence and done properly. So we've built an onboarding tool, and single-handedly, one of our candidates built that from start to finish, and it's absolutely excellent. So it's ticking every single box. So the onboarding experience now for staff coming into NT is a very good experience. It's not clunky, it's not clumsy, it's very professional. And again, that's all down to our staff member with autism building that and having the creativity, having the discipline, and having the wherewithal to know what's needed, along with some support from their manager, but not loads of support from the manager either. So, from our perspective, it's really working out. And I think what it's doing within the organization as well, it's just demystifying perceptions, and it's just normalizing, anybody with any form of disability as well, and just trying to get that to be just an organic thing in the workplace. And it is featuring it to be a much more, rewarding and healthy environment results. So people can see that, investing in the candidates, and as I said, it's not onerous investment like people will perceive it is. There is a purposeful investment. It is quite deliberate, of course, but it's not onerous, and it's very manageable. As I say, having the right manager is absolutely critical to doing this. But for us, watching other staff members see the benefits, see them kind of normalize it, see them not shying away from communication, all that kind of stuff, or looking on as this is some kind of experiment or project. It's not. And I think that's the beauty for me. And you see people more engaged. And then as a result, to watch, the candidate and talk to people a bit more normally and feel comfortable in that environment as well. I think we touched on some of the office space stuff, and I absolutely completely agree with that. Having the right environment is really key. I think working from home helps, but equally I'd say as well, our candidates like being in the office too. They like the social side of it at times, not all the time, but in the right way. And I think, having that right space, and we're lucky in Limerick that we do have very good collaboration spaces. They're not really formal looking, they're a little bit Google-esque at times, and those kind of things help as well, kind of normalize a scenario environment that people feel comfortable in as well. So those things do help, but they're not must-haves either. They just help. I think, into the future as well, other things we'd like to do around this is kind of have, in each function, a couple of different candidates for different reasons, and kind of leveraging off their skills, leveraging off what we've learned so far, and keep building on this and get momentum. Because, there is an element here of doing this in the right manner. And there is an element of not just ticking a box to say we've done that or we engaged in it. I do think, as I said at the start, and reinforce this message a couple of times, given the audience that we have here, it's just a little bit of effort up front, and companies have to really engage in this in the right way and do more in this space, and not be lazy around it, to be honest, because, any of the stuff I've seen before, it's just a lack of, putting that extra 10% in, or putting that extra piece of effort in up front to get this up and running. And once it's up and running, it's fine. We've had no issues to report. But we have more issues from, as I said, like normal staff members, when I call it that, on the floor, different challenges on the floor than we've had with the candidates we have in from an autistic background. So for me, it's working incredibly well. There's momentum now as well. I think that's really key as well, that we don't slow down the momentum, that we keep it going. We don't just do it as a token one-off, that we normalize this across all teams. And the biggest thing I'll say, and this may not go down well with every HR person in the call, it's got to be business-led a little bit. It can't just be down to HR to run this. You've got to get candidates within your teams, within the business, that are willing to invest in this in the right way, as they would any staff member, by the way, but they've got to lead it. And for me, anything that is this that's new or unique, or perceived as unique, for me, what works is having someone in a business champion it, bring it through, and then demonstrate to other business units like we are going, this works. And actually, by the way, it's not just a box ticking exercise. This is really beneficial, extremely beneficial. I can honestly say the discipline and the structure that our candidates have put around other people that work with them is brilliant to watch. So they're not, it's not just any form of burden on us. It's quite the opposite. Actually, we're getting a lot of benefit from this. And as I said, the kind of engagement around it, the perception around it, the normalization around it is great to witness. So, I mean, for me, the other things I'd say for the group and the engaging this is, we've touched on a lot of the things at the start there that we're working, what doesn't. You have to say it again, good, clear, concise communication is so vital, as it is for any staff member, right? I think that really does help. And not, having multiple things thrown at the candidates, giving them 1 or 2 tasks at a time, giving them set times, target dates that's achievable, no more you will do any other staff member, and letting them get on with it and letting them come to you when they need support in the right way. But not suffocating them, not micromanaging them, giving them, just knowing that the presence there and support there in the background is really, really key from our perspective. So, I think, look, I'm very enthusiastic about it, very positive about it. I think we're on the precipice of something good here, of changing an awful lot of perceptions and really getting that wholesome workforce environment that we all talk about. And this is real, this is working, and absolutely encourage everybody on a call to engage in it, because the kind of benefits of it for your workforce, let alone the candidate, are absolutely massive. I'm really enjoying doing it, and I can't wait to keep this momentum going and keep championing this. So look forward to your questions at the end, and equally as well, if you want to ask me anything, feel free to email me separately.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. And I think hearing from both the personal and the work experiences you have and that you can contribute to this conversation, I think are invaluable for many people. So really appreciate that. And as Rob said, if you have any questions, please just put them in the Q&A box and we'll get to them at the end. So we're now going to hear from Jenny Kane-Mason and Zoe Canan. Jenny is a passionate advocate for neurodiversity, both within the community and the workplace. She works at Facebook and has been working there for 2 years, almost 2 years, and co-leads the neurodiversity pillar within Facebook's Differently Abled Ireland, the employee resource group. In addition to this, she's also chairperson of a local family support charity in South Dublin, Prism DLR, which supports parents, families, autistic children and teenagers. Zoe has also been working with Facebook, and she's been there for the last 3.5 years. She co-leads the neurodiversity pillar on Facebook's Differently Abled Ireland Employee Resource Group. And in addition to this, she leads the career pillar on Facebook's Global Operations EMEA Women at Facebook Employee Resource Group. She's a strong advocate for the neurodiverse community within Facebook and is committed to making the workplace a more inclusive and supportive environment for our neurodiverse friends. So I'd like to hand both over to you, Zoe and Jenny now, and really looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much, Fiona, for the introductions, and thank you to Emily and Rob for those fascinating insights. I always pick up something new every talk or webinar I attend, and I've got 2 nuggets already from the guys. Emily spoke to the fact that measures that we introduce to support our neurodiverse community benefit everybody, and certainly we've found that in our work here in Facebook Ireland. Rob spoke around the idea of purposeful investment of time and effort, as opposed to onerous, and that really rings true for me. So thank you very much, guys, for leaving me with those nuggets. So as Fiona said, I've been working at Facebook for almost 2 years now, and I co-lead the neurodiversity pillar of what we call our Facebook resource group. That's one of my jobs. My other job is I am a mum to 3 amazing children, and we live in a wonderfully busy and eclectic neurodiverse household. So they're my 2 jobs and what I spend my days and nights doing. I am a passionate advocate for neurodiversity, and I've been doing that for a number of years. And when I joined Facebook, I was absolutely thrilled to join a community called the Facebook Resource Groups, which essentially are a network of groups which are set up to develop inclusive communities and support traditionally underrepresented groups. And the Facebook Resource Groups serve as a kind of a catalyst for fostering that inclusive environment within our business. And it's been amazing for me to be able to join that tribe and to continue the work in Ireland in relation to neurodiversity. So those Facebook resource groups, as we mentioned, their kind of goal is to support and celebrate and empower Facebook employees and friends and family who either have a disability, differently abled, or are neurodiverse. And within Ireland, we have our own Differently Abled Ireland resource group. That's an incredible community of individuals, advocates, allies from across the different teams that we have. And again, our goal in Differently Abled is to continue to raise awareness and build understanding. And I always think back to a comment that a colleague of ours made when we spoke about raising awareness. And he said, we can all know something, we can all know the name of something, but unless we build understanding, we're not effectively doing the job of communicating the needs of our community. So a big nod and thanks to Daniel for reminding me that we can raise awareness, but our real goal is to build understanding. So the Facebook Resource Group seeks to support and empower our employees and create that network of allies and to contribute to the differently able community. How we set it up in Ireland is we have 3 pillars. We have a neurodiversity pillar, which is the pillar that Zoe and I lead. There is also a mental health pillar and a physical disability pillar. And the leads of each of those pillars work closely together. And we talk about intersectionality, and we talk about, you know, the experiences of the different groups within those communities. And very often, back to your point, Emily, when we seek to solve something for one group, we make improvements for others. So it's a fantastic group supported by an executive sponsor within the Ireland leadership team who helps us drive that agenda forward. So in terms of how Zoe and I approach our work in the neurodiversity pillar and what we try to do is, I can categorize it maybe into 3 areas. One is that building awareness and understanding, and Zoe is going to talk to you about some work we've done over the last year in a series of webinars that we've been doing with the support of AsIAm to try and raise that consciousness and that understanding across our business in Ireland. We also set up internal closed workplace groups. So they're a little bit like Facebook groups that many of you may be on Facebook. And they're essentially closed and safe spaces for neurodiverse employees and their allies to, you know, seek support, to ask questions and to learn from each other. And that's an amazing group of people. And then lastly, our neurodiverse pillar serves as a point of contact for many of the other functions and teams across Facebook Ireland who will come to us, to Zoe and I, which is fantastic, and look to get input from the neurodiverse community around projects and initiatives that are underway. So whether that's facilities looking at building, or whether it's recruitment, looking at recruitment strategies, many of the teams will come to seek support and input from the neurodiverse community through the Differently Able group, and that's been a really incredible experience and great to see you know, so much interaction and so much proactivity around neurodiversity in the business. On a personal level, I suppose, when I joined Facebook Ireland and found the Differently Able group and became the neurodiversity pillar lead, I was astounded at the level of support, and I really felt like I found my tribe. I know many of us talk about our tribes. I certainly found my tribe, and I love the fact that on top of my day job, which I adore as well, I get to meet with so many different people from across the business, like-minded individuals who are passionate and invested in building community. And ultimately, Facebook's goal is to build community, and within Facebook Ireland, our goal is to support and build the neurodiverse community. So I'm going to hand over to Zoe now, who's going to give you some examples of the kind of work that we've been doing. And thank you, Zoe.
Great, thanks a mil, Jenny, for that that intro. So yeah, so as Jenny gave a broad overview of what Differently Abled is in Facebook, I'm just going to dive deeper into the different initiatives that myself and Jenny have gotten involved in over the past year. I think Jenny really hit the nail on the head there when she said, you know, it's not just about raising awareness, but it's to actually create an understanding. There's no point in raising awareness if people aren't going to get it at the end of the day. So that's something that we really focus on as neurodiversity leads. So yeah, so back in October of last year, we invited Adam in to give a talk, Adam Harris, to the community, and we streamed it to all Facebook employees globally. And he just spoke about how to support your neurodiverse colleagues. He spoke about managers, how they can support their direct reports. And that was really, really well received. The following week, the head of Facebook Ireland said in one of his calls to the company that he's never seen such a virtual seminar that was just so well engaged. It really hit home with people. People really loved it. So based on that, it was such a success for this year. We've arranged for 4 talks with AsIAm, 1 per quarter. And each talk is going to be targeted to a different audience. So for instance, we've got one that's targeted at family members and how they can support their family members that may be on the autism spectrum, or neurodiverse employees as well. We also have a talk aimed at people managers and HR. And finally, the last talk of the year, which is aimed for November time, that's going to be for colleagues, how you can support your team members who are neurodiverse. So these are a few of the initiatives that we have going to create that understanding in the company for the year. In addition to that, as Jenny said, we work cross-functionally with lots of different teams. So by way of an example, we have been working closely with our facilities team. We have a new office, our main campus now in Ballsbridge. So the facilities team came to myself and Jenny, and they asked for our input. And now, as a result, they are piloting a sensory room in Ballsbridge, which I actually see is one of the questions in the Q&A. So that's quite interesting. So a lot of thought has gone into that room, you know, from the flooring, that it's soft, you know, for the sensory element of, you know, feel and touch. There's going to be different scents within the room. There's going to be LED lighting with vibrant colors, and employees will be given a remote control so they can adjust the strength of the lighting and make adjustments, read the colors. So that's one thing that we've worked on with the facilities team. Another thing that we've worked on with HR combined with the learning and development team is how to get people's attention when they onboard in Facebook. You know, we've received feedback over the past year from employees to say that they aren't sure what supports are available to them. They're not even sure that they weren't even aware that Differently Abled exists. You know, it's such a big company. There's just so much going on. So we worked with L&D to find a way to combat this. So from next week onwards, all new hires, when they onboard, they're going to get an introduction to each of the FBRGs. So they were on their radar. And if they need support in any of the 3 pillars, as Jenny mentioned, you know, physical, mental health, or neurodiversity, they know who to come to. So that's really exciting. And then, of course, as Jenny said, we've got the Facebook, the workplace groups. So we've got closed groups. So it's a safe space for employees who are neurodiverse to post free of judgment. And then we have open groups, which are open to allies as well. In addition to that, we worked closely with recruitment. We have a program called Facebook Connections. So when candidates are going through the recruitment process, they can look at profiles of individuals that work in Facebook. And, you know, if they see that perhaps one employee who is self-identified as having autism, the candidate can reach out to that employee and ask what their experience in the workplace is like, so they can get all this information before joining. So that's a lovely program that was rolled out last year. And then very lastly, in terms of my own personal experience and observations in the workplace, over COVID, I've noticed so much. You know, I've had introductory one-to-ones with neurodiverse employees where they haven't shown their screen, which is quite unusual in an introduction when you can't see the person's face. I've had one-on-ones with neurodiverse employees where they've told me that they've placed post-it notes all over the screen around my face to kind of black out my bedroom. My bedroom was very brightly coloured, and they said that can be a bit overwhelming for them. And then prior to COVID, it wasn't unusual to see staff walking around the building in their socks. So all of these things I just think are brilliant. I think diversity is incredible. I think it's really exciting. Some people may look at those type of things and think that's kind of weird, but that's the attitude we're trying to change, and that's the stigma. And that's why it's brilliant working with Jenny on differently abled. Each pillar has one lead, but neurodiversity has 2 leads. And the reason for that is the company they're aware of how meaty this topic is. It's only evolving. And last year, so many people didn't even know the term neurodiversity, but now it's become a lot more well known. So yeah, it's a very exciting opportunity. And thanks to AsIAm today for allowing myself and Jenny to talk.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate that. And I think it's great to have it kind of to cover these things in a very conversational type style as well, because I think, and I always said, I think that's what people take away the most. It's great to have that mix of presenting ideas and presenting strategies, but also being able to have the opportunity and engage in conversation about it as well. So thank you so much for your contribution. If anybody has any questions, by all means, as I've said the whole way through, please put them into the Q&A box. I have a couple of questions that have come through here. The first one is for Emily. So I am interested in establishing the baseline within my company in terms of current attitudes and knowledge of neurodiversity. Are you aware of a standard survey or a way to measure this? So a way of measuring attitudes?
Great question. Should I turn my video back on, or?
Yeah, if you don't mind, that'd be great.
No problem. Cool. Let me just have a quick read of that again. Where will it be? In the Q&A box.
Yeah.
Interested in establishing the baseline within the company in terms of current attitudes, knowledge, neurodiversity. No, there isn't a standard survey. So the only thing I can say is through sort of standardized equal opportunities forms and things like that people do at the start. But obviously this is a bit different. I think, to be honest, they're all based on sort of what an individual company wants to know, and they're all very different. But I would say that probably on Google, there's quite a lot of similar things like this. I'm a complete just Googler through and through. So I'd probably recommend having a look on there. But if you did want to chat about that, I'm not sure who said it, sorry, but if you did want like a chat about that, like half an hour call or something, I'm completely happy to sort of assist with that where I can, really.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Emily. And I have a question here for Rob. So should there be a requirement for autistic employees to have access to sensory or breakout rooms during their working day? And if an employer can provide this, how can the other staff understand the need for their colleague to use these facilities?
Yeah, so I mean, is there an absolute need? No. Does it help an awful lot? Absolutely. As I mentioned, I suppose our office in Limerick in particular, we have these kind of breakout rooms anyway that we built, not specifically for this scenario, but it's being used a little bit for this scenario. And I don't think it's mandatory. The other thing I'll say to you as well, don't underestimate the amount of government support, grants, different things that are available. If companies want to invest in this space, there is really good support there in the background. That again, probably just a little bit of education from different companies to understand what's available to go and build out a room like that and get funding and support to do that as well. It does help. It absolutely helps, but I wouldn't say it's mandatory. I think for me, having a very broad, open space office plan certainly seems to help. And as well, flexibility, I think we touched on earlier on, is really key as well. I think it's going to be really beneficial going forward, what we've learned in the pandemic.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much for that. And then we have time for one more question. So a question has come in for Jenny and Zoe, and that is, what formal training did you receive for advising facilities on neurodiverse facilities? As a mother of a neurodiverse child, I can offer help, but no formal training, and have been recently appointed as diversity and inclusion lead for my site.
Yeah, I can take this, seeing as I brought this up. So just to clarify, myself and Jenny, we simply just give our input. We are by no means experts. Part of the resources groups is that we're there just to support and advise. We do have an accommodations team in Facebook who would have more expertise. So we would have put the facilities team in touch with the accommodations team, and they would have been able to do it that way. These were focus group sessions where they just gained our feedback, and we invited neurodiverse colleagues along so they can talk about their experience and what would work well for them and what wouldn't work well for them. So that's what we did there. But we're by no means experts, just there to support and help.
You know, you should never trust somebody who says that they are an expert. I always say that a real expert would know that there's always more to learn.
Exactly.
Kira, I might just add to your question, because I know that you were talking about becoming a diversity and inclusion lead for your site. In terms of training, I know that on a personal level over the years, but also within Facebook, we have leveraged the support of AsIAm, who do have training and they do have a lot of knowledge and information available. So again, there's lots of webinars available. Certainly over the years, I've done AsIAm training and other neurodiversity training. But I would say to you that the team in AsIAm are certainly a great port of call for a first stop shop to help you with that. So good luck with your appointments, and I hope it goes really well. And please do, if there are anyone on the call who would like to talk about experience in terms of neurodiversity and becoming a lead, we're happy to engage, and Fiona can pass on her details. So good luck.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Those are some great questions, and a huge thank you once again to all of our speakers here today. It was great to get such a breadth of information, expertise and experiences across through the masterclass. So we really appreciate it. And thanks to everybody for tuning in today as well. And if you perhaps had to log off or only log in a bit late, or if you had any colleagues that you think would benefit from watching, the recording will be available on our YouTube in the coming days. But thank you so much to everybody, and we hope to see you all again at our next masterclass. Bye.